When I discovered my black maid nurturing my disabled daughter, my life took an unexpected turn. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stumbled into the living room, heart racing, mind clouded. The moment froze. There she was, Emma, my world, flanked by Mary, my maid. They were entwined in a bubble of care, laughter floating like a whisper in the heavy air. It shattered my reality. Mary always had that mysterious aura, a quiet strength that pulled me in. She wasn't just an employee, she was a force. I knew little of her life outside my home, but her eyes told tales of struggle and hope. The way she stroked Emma's hair, smoothing it back, was tender. My heart ached as I took in the scene, warmth and fear battling within me. How could I not see this? I watched from the doorway, breath caught in my throat. Mary was speaking softly, her words punctuating the silence. "You're so brave, Emma. You can do anything." My daughter's eyes sparkled. I had never seen her so alive, so full of possibility. This was the same girl who often retreated into herself, locked in a world where words failed her. But what was happening here? A knot twisted in my stomach. I felt like an intruder in a sacred moment, this secret bond forming without me. Mary had a way with Emma that felt almost magical. I would never have guessed. I wanted to scream. To charge forward and demand answers. Why hadn't I noticed before? There were whispers in the city about Mary, hints of a checkered past that felt like a storm brewing. People muttered behind closed doors. Was there more to her? More beneath the surface? My chest tightened. Suddenly, Emma burst into giggles, and Mary's laugh poured out like sunlight, bright and unexpected. The sound enveloped me, drawing me deeper. I felt torn. My loyalties wavered like a flag shaken by the wind. Should I embrace this new connection or shatter it into pieces? And then it happened. Mary's smile faltered. She shot a glance over her shoulder, locking eyes with me, and in that split second, I saw something shift. Fear? Resignation? My heart raced at the realization that I had interrupted something precious. What if it was more than nurturing? What if it was love? Panic surged through me, leaving a bitter taste. I had to know the truth. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air tightened around me as I stood frozen, grappling with an onslaught of emotions. Mary's gaze pierced me, igniting something primal within, and all at once, the laughter that had seemed like balm to my soul now felt like shards of glass. Realization dawned, heavy and suffocating. What I had stumbled upon was more than affection, it was an intricate tapestry of connection, spun without me in the threads of my own home. Mary the first managed to speak, the name tasting foreign on my tongue. My heart pounded, there were so many unspoken questions swirling in the room, the walls closing in from all sides, as if they could absorb the tension. Emma looked between us, confusion crossing her porcelain face, a mirror reflecting my tumult. Mary blinked rapidly, processing the weight of my presence. The vibrant warmth between her and Emma seemed to freeze in that moment, as though my mere existence had cast a shadow, veiling their light. In that split second, I felt like a villain in my own story, an invader in this sanctuary of trust. I didn't mean to interrupt, I stammered, the words feeling hollow. Everything I had thought I understood about my life, about who we were in that space, crumbled as I searched for the right path forward. The air was still. I could almost hear the clock ticking, counting down the seconds until the inevitable confrontation that I was just. Mary began, taking a tentative step towards me, her voice tentative yet strong. I was just showing Emma how to paint again. She used to love it. A soft melancholy danced through her words, and my chest tightened, the realization that I had become a barrier flitting through my consciousness. Painting? Emma echoed softly, her eyes lighting with a flicker of joy that tugged at my heart. It was short-lived, overshadowed by the confusion of our position, caught between the past and our uncertain future. Yes, painting, Mary reiterated, purpose threading through her tone as if she were calling on an ancient bond to infuse the heaviness with a trace of hope. Just the two of us, sharing a moment. There was a pause, and she shifted her gaze back to Emma, the depth of understanding in her eyes clear. "You're so good at it, Emma. You bring your colors to life." I took a step backward, retreating into myself. I felt like an invisible wall was being constructed between us, brick by brick. My protective instincts kicked in, but my heart ached for the joy I had seen in Emma's face. In that precious moment, a sliver of resentment flickered. How could I compete with what was evidently an uncharted bond? "I didn't know you painted," I said, attempting to engage Emma but sounding disjointed. The truth was I had spent so long burying myself in work, consumed by an avalanche of anxiety, that I had scarcely realized the vibrant world Emma had created for herself, or how Mary had nurtured it. "Mommy," Emma whispered, her head tilted to one side, searching for the right words. Mary was going to teach me about mixing colors. Her little fingers reached for the empty canvas in front of her, her excitement evident, even amidst the turmoil. That I glanced at Mary, our eyes locked in an unspoken battle. There was a strength in her gaze, a defiance that told me she wouldn't back down. "It's okay, Emma. We can do it another time," I offered weakly, but my words stuttered against the innocence radiating from my daughter. "What if I don't have another time?" Emma replied, the tremor of her voice shaking me to my core. My heart shattered anew at the realization that in her world, such moments weren't just fleeting experiences, they were lifelines. A wave of defensiveness washed over me. I wanted to scream, to rage against the fact that I was being pushed aside in my own home. But then, like a passing storm, a thought came. What if I allowed this connection to flourish? What if this woman, known only through whispers, held the key to unlocking Emma's potential in ways I couldn't? The air around us shifted. It felt electric, charged with unspoken intentions and emotions threatening to spiral out of control. I glanced away, trying to make sense of everything. What was I willing to do to keep my daughter happy? Where did I belong in this evolving dynamic? "Can we all paint together?" Emma's fragile voice shattered the silence, and my heart tugged violently at the suggestion. My daughter was extending a bridge to both Mary and me, a clarion call to rise above the turmoil and join her in that colorful world. Mary's smile returned, softening the edges of the storm. "Of course, Emma. Together, we can create something beautiful." But as I felt the flicker of hope ascend, a nagging question enveloped me. Could I accept this strange alliance? Would I be able to set aside my fears and embrace the joy that lay before us? Suddenly, the ringing of my phone jolted me back to the present. Without thinking, I pulled it from my pocket, feeling a wave of dread wash over me as I glanced at the caller ID. It was my husband, the very person I'd hoped would offer clarity in this muddy situation. Hesitating, I answered, unable to tear my eyes away from Mary, who watched me with an unreadable expression. "Why aren't you home?" "We need to talk," he snapped through the line, tension crackling like static electricity. A chill ran down my spine. "I'm now, sweetheart." "I don't have time for games," he interrupted sharply. "It's your daughter. There's something you need to know." I held my breath, panic swirling violently in my gut as I noticed Emma's apprehension mirrored my own. I shared an uneasy glance with Mary, whose brow furrowed as if sensing the storm closing in once more. In a split second, my world flickered. What revelation awaited? What truth was about to unfold? The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring, across the vivid room where colors were meant to dance freely but instead stood, like me, at a standstill. I felt trapped between the warmth of my daughter's aspirations and the chill of impending revelations. Memories of laughter threaded through my veins, haunting the edges of my consciousness, reminding me of easier days, simpler joys, the good before the cracks began to show. Your daughter? I echoed, my voice trembling as uncertainty clashed with fear. The weight of my husband's words pressed against my chest, sending heavy shadows that seemed to blend into the soft, inviting light of the room. What's wrong? Can you just come home? He insisted, his voice drenched in urgency. It's serious. As his words settled in, they felt like a stone cast into a still pond, creating ripples that threatened to engulf even the faintest sense of stability I had managed to cling to. The refuge I thought I had found in Mary's presence began to fray, unraveling with each second that passed. When I looked at Emma, her small face was drawn tight with concern, and my heart ached at the thought that this moment, so charged with light and potential, could fracture so easily. I'll be home as soon as I can, I managed to say, forcing my voice into steadiness, even as a storm brewed beneath the surface that I hung up, the finality of the click echoing in the air between us. Mary's expression, a blend of compassion and understanding, pulled at my heart. She knew all too well the turmoil that shadowed every home, the fear laced through parenthood, especially when it trapped you within boundaries of what you could face. Are you okay? She asked softly, stepping closer, her hand hovering as if unsure whether to reach for me. Those 3 words resonated deeper than any greeting, a question that held the weight of love, concern, and perhaps, a spark of hope. That I stood frozen, overwhelmed by the dichotomy of emotions swelling within me. No, Imnat, I finally admitted, my voice quivering. The admission felt like opening the floodgates. Hidden fears surged forth, momentarily drowning out everything else. There's something I need to understand, and I'm scared. Emma's eyes flickered between us, sensing the tremors of uncertainty in her mother that were almost palpable. Mary knelt beside her, gentle as a feather, turning her attention back to the little girl. You know, sometimes talking about what's troubling us can make it lighter. What do you think, Emma? Would you like to share our worries together? I had never considered vulnerability as a sanctuary before, but in that instant, I recognized an unexpected kindness in Mary. She provided a space for my daughter that encouraged expression instead of confinement. Emma nodded, her face brightening just a hint at the thought of being part of something bigger, a comforting circle of understanding. That I watched them, caught between holding on and letting go, and with dawning clarity, I realized the vital role that Mary played in both our lives. Perhaps my instinct had been wrong. Maybe, just maybe, letting Mary in could mend more than the fragmented parts of my daughter's world. It could open the floodgates of healing for me too, but doubt shadowed my growing acceptance as a new thought whispered in the recesses of my mind. If my husband's call was as dire as he suggested, what would it mean for us? Could I allow myself to embrace a bond with Mary, knowing that every ounce of stability was already fraying around the edges? What if he disapproved or cast doubt on the goodness I felt stirring within these 4 walls? Backfiring memories crowded into my consciousness, moments of hurt and betrayal that I couldn't ignore. My husband had always thrived on control, and it had been his way or the highway for as long as I could remember. Would allowing this alliance lead to judgment, to isolation, or worse, to breaking Emma's tender heart by making her choose sides? Should I whisper to her, just leave it be, I can handle this alone, or risk deepening ties that felt as fragile as the canvas awaiting colors, the swirling? Thoughts coalesced until I couldn't breathe. I have to go, I said abruptly, taking a step back, pulling myself from the fragile warmth built between us. I could hear the quiet thud of my heart against the rush of uncertainty. Is it okay if I come with you? Emma asked softly, her voice a beacon of innocence, pulling at the frayed edges of my resolve. How could I answer that? How could I drag her into the storm I had created? I faltered, looking at Mary for strength, and instead, saw a flicker of understanding that cut through my doubt. With a nod, she stepped back, offering me the space to find my way through the thicket. The air felt charged as I clasped Emma's hand in mine. Let's go, and we'll talk to your father together, I said, but even as I spoke the words, a flicker of panic settled deep in my bones. What truth awaited me, and would my fragile alliance with Mary survive the scrutiny of the real world? Would I find myself once again at a crossroads, or had the world shifted in ways I could scarcely begin to fathom? As we stepped into the unfamiliar territory of what lay ahead, I could feel the weight of looming storms, realities that I had avoided, and yet, were hungry to be faced. With each step forward, I was both terrified and emboldened, the tether to my daughter grounding me, but the shadows of my choices stretched endlessly behind me. The car ride home was an uneasy silence, the tension thick enough to slice. Emma's small hand tucked securely in mine felt like the only thread of connection in this wild web of uncertainty. Her eyes bore into me, questioning the very air between us. I felt the weight of my own emotions crashing against the steely calm I was trying to create, and with every moment, I knew it grew more difficult to disguise my fears from her. "What's wrong, Mama?" Her voice, tender and sincere, tugged at my heart. How could I burden her with the storm brewing within me? How could I shatter the innocence in her gaze? "Nothing, sweetheart," I lied softly, hoping my answer would be enough for now. I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile that felt more like a masquerade than a reflection of my true self. But inside, a battle raged. The distance between my escalating fears and the warmth of my daughter's presence felt insurmountable. As we neared the house, memories of laughter and comfort flickered briefly, images of backyard barbecues and long summer days spent doing nothing all at once. I shook my head as if to shoo them away. They were ghosts now, reminders of a time when everything wasn't so tangled, when my daughter was the joy wrapped in a sunny aura rather than a reminder of my heavy heart. When we pulled into the driveway, the house loomed over us, a structure that held so much history yet sparked little warmth in my soul. Emma squeezed my hand tighter as if sensing the chill in the air. I took a deep breath, trying to muster the courage that felt so elusive. As we stepped out, I noticed the flickering porch light and thought about how it had once been a beacon of late-night laughter. It felt so dim now. Inside, the quiet was profound, amplified by the weight of secrets that hung heavily, waiting for the right moment to spill forth. My husband was in the living room, shadowed by the dim light of the table lamp, wearing an expression that was both shattered and resolute. The moment our eyes met, a wave crashed over me, a mix of fear and urgency, a semblance of normalcy overshadowed by the reality that awaited us. "You're here," he said abruptly, his tone urgent yet unreadable, as if gauging my response even before delivering the blow. I glanced at Emma, her small form dwarfed by the enormity of our shared tension. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Each second spun out into a forever, each heartbeat echoing with the weight of what I might learn. He looked at Emma with a softness that caught me off guard, then back to me, his expression pleading for understanding. "We need to talk about Emma." He hesitated, as if the words themselves were knives too sharp to hold. "It's about her future." At that moment, I felt the world around me crack further, the foundation of our family feeling more precarious than ever. "Go on," I urged, the words heavy on my tongue, as if the action of speaking were fraught with peril. "Her school," he began hesitantly, "they called today. We have to figure out how to help her cope with the." He faltered again, now almost desperate, as I could feel the sorrow and something darker swimming just below the surface of his voice. "She requires assistance beyond what we can provide at home, and I don't know what that means." Each syllable felt like a blow, each truth shifting the ground beneath my feet. "I didn't want to tell you right away, but they think it's more than just adaptation. They think we may need to look at therapies, options we hadn't explored." The gravity of his words sank through me, leaving a chilling aftertaste of dread. Therapies. Options. The world beyond the perfunctory layers of our life together suddenly loomed, dark and daunting. I let go of Emma's hand, panic spiraling within me, a cyclone of guilt and fear intertwining. "How serious is it? What do you mean more than just adaptation? Are we talking about special schools? What's happening?" He mentioned compression therapy, but it sounds extreme, and there was an edge of something fractured in his voice that directly resonated with the turmoil within me. My breath quickened as pieces of the future I'd imagined for Emma began to crumble around us. Emma shifted, her eyes darting back and forth between us, uncertain. "Mama? I don't understand." And in that moment, I saw a crack in my husband's facade, a shimmer of vulnerability that felt unfamiliar and terrifying. Despite the weight of my own turmoil, sheer instinct kicked in, and I turned to Emma, kneeling to her level. "Baby, we just need to understand what the doctors think, okay? You're brave, and we'll figure this out together. You know that, right?" She nodded, though uncertainty clouded her innocence. My husband began, but I cut in, the urge to shield Emma bubbling to the surface. "Let's sit down and really talk this through," I interrupted. "Together. All of us. Can we do that?" His eyes flickered with something akin to hope, but the edges were still fraying. Darkness hovered in the corners of our meeting. Before we could settle into the conversation, however, the doorbell rang, not the standard chime, but an insistent, frantic knock that shattered the fragile space we had created. My heart leaped at the unexpectedness, my pulse racing as my intuition kicked in, warning of what might lay behind that door. "You'll get it," I said instinctively, unsure if I could bear the weight of our conversation being interrupted, yet curiosity tugged at me relentlessly. As I opened the door, the cool evening air rushed in, bringing with it the scent of rain and the promise of something looming. The figure standing on the threshold stole my breath away. A mix of shock and disbelief washed over me. Mary stood there, drenched and breathless, her eyes wide with urgency. "Please," she said, barely able to hold herself upright. "I need to talk to you. It's about Emma." "You have to listen." My world warped in that moment. The air felt heavier as the convergence of our paths twisted before our very eyes. What had once been a moment of normalcy was now steeped in uncertainty, and I could feel the tremors of what laid ahead. The looming shadows were closing in around me, whispering secrets I desperately didn't want to hear. The air felt thick with an unspoken heaviness as I stepped back, instinctively ushering Mary inside. I quickly turned to my husband, his eyes reflecting the sudden upheaval as he crossed the living room, concern etched in every line of his face. Emma stood by my side, oblivious to the storm brewing around her, her innocence a stark contrast to the impending chaos. "What's going on?" my husband asked, his voice taut, as he placed a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. Mary's presence felt both grounding and disorienting. "I didn't know how else to tell you," she began, her voice shaking, as she brushed back the damp strands of hair plastered to her forehead. "I saw Emma at the park today." My heart raced. The connection between Mary and Emma had always been delicate, a cautious bond overshadowed by my own biases and apprehensions. "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping forward, trying to comprehend the depth of her words. "I was walking home from the store, and I noticed her sitting alone on a swing," she continued, her gaze intent, caught somewhere between fear and resolve. "When I approached, I saw that she seemed different, lost. But then her eyes darted to Emma, briefly reflecting a sorrow I couldn't yet grasp. She wasn't alone. I was going to call you, but I thought maybe I could just talk to her myself. I wanted to understand what?" I pressed, urgency igniting my tone. My mind raced through the endless possibilities of what this could mean. Mary swallowed hard, her throat working as if she struggled to find the right words. "She told me about the things she sees at night sometimes. Shadows, voices. She's scared." And I think her voice dropped, nearly breaking. "I think she needs more than just therapy. She needs someone who understands this, someone who can help." "Help with what?" came my husband's strident response, slicing through the thick tension that had settled in the room. His demeanor shifted, protective instincts emerging as he pressed Mary for clarity. "The guidance, the connection," she said, the urgency heightening her tone. "I've seen these things before. I don't want to scare you, but what things?" I interrupted, alarm throbbing in my chest. Emma was just a child. She shouldn't have to bear any fears, let alone those steeped in shadows or voices. "Spiritual things," Mary managed to say, her voice cracking. "They know. They reach out. Sometimes, children like Emma, they can see things others can't. I didn't want to scare you, but she needs help to navigate this. And I can help." The words crashed into me, swirling in a chaotic whirlpool of confusion. How could I process this new layer of reality? How could I entertain such ideas when the weight of Emma's day-to-day life already filled my heart with dread? I glanced sideways at her, innocent and hopeful, my fierce love battling against my innate fear of the unknown, Mama? Emma's voice, small and confused, broke through my stream of thought. Her eyes darted between the three of us, a delicate crease forming on her brow. What are you talking about? Fine that I knelt down in front of her, urgency clawing at my gut as I grasped her tiny hands in mine. Sweetheart, we're just trying to understand you better, okay? It's important, I reassured her, feeling small and helpless in the face of everything that swirled around us. But it wasn't enough. The uncertainty loomed larger than ever, and I could see that my daughter felt it too. Her wide eyes wavered, confusion morphing into muted panic. I don't want to talk about it. Please, Mama. At that moment, I understood I was failing her. The weight of Mary's revelations pressed upon my chest, but the shadows of fear didn't just belong to Emma. The uncertainties of our lives had reached a crescendo, and the stakes felt impossibly high. Emma, please, I whispered, desperate to reconnect and shield her from the swirling currents of distress. Talk to me. You can tell me anything that I see things sometimes, she blurted out, her voice barely a whisper. Shadows that don't go away. A shudder coursed through my body as her words echoed like a bell tolling in a haunting silence. The shadows wouldn't go away. My heart sank at the weight of her admission. I turned back to Mary, her expression firm but brimming with compassion. Just give her a chance, Mary urged gently. Children like Emma, they often carry gifts. It can be overwhelming, and they don't know how to navigate it alone. My husband's eyes flickered with disbelief, skepticism threading through the air as he processed Mary's insistence. We don't even know what that entails or if. But before he could finish, Emma's voice rose again, firm and unwavering. I want to see the shadows. I'm not scared anymore. The intensity in my chest shifted to an unsettling sort of betrayal. When had we become such strangers to one another's truths? Was I truly prepared to let her venture into this unknown realm, where fears could intertwine with something beautifully enigmatic? As I stood there, the tension coiling tighter around us, the air vibrated with the weight of decisions still unseen. I glanced at my husband, who met my gaze with an expression tinged with both caution and determination. We need to talk about this as a family, I insisted, yet even as the words fell from my lips, I felt the walls of our resolve starting to crumble. Just then, the door swung open, a gust of wind sweeping through the house, tossing papers across the table. Emma gasped, the shadows of the outside world looming larger than life, while I felt a shiver snake down my spine. It felt as though a great force had shifted the calm before the storm, whispering of fates intertwined. A wave of uncertainty washed over me as a voice rang from outside, startling us back to our collective reality. Emma. I'm here. You need to come outside. It was a voice I recognized, one that sent a jolt through my heart. Clara, a girl from school, standing at the threshold, eyes wide with urgency, swirling with secrets known only to them. As Emma darted towards the door, my limbs froze, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. Where would this lead? What shadows awaited her beyond the threshold? In that moment, as the door swung wide, I felt the fracture in our fragile world widen, a rift that threatened to pull us all into unknown depths. Emma. I called, my heart racing, a mix of protectiveness and fear compelling me to hold her back. But the choice was slipping away into the unknown, and all I could do was watch as she stepped into the abyss where both light and darkness coiled, ready to embrace whatever came next. The air outside felt charged, almost electric, as Emma hesitated at the threshold, her small hand gripping the doorframe. Claire's eyes were bright, almost too bright, as if they held a universe of untold stories, but there was an edge to her excitement that made my heart flutter with unease. Come on, Emma. You have to see. She urged, glancing back toward the shadows of the street. Emma, wait. I shouted, my voice firm yet laced with desperation. The wind whipped around me, sending a few stray leaves scuttling across the porch. My daughter turned back, her expression a mix of defiance and curiosity, her own desires battling against the storm of my protective instincts. What are you doing? My husband's voice rang out, the urgency in it mirrored my own. He took a step forward, interposing himself between the door and Emma. "You can't just go outside with her. We need to figure everything out first." "She's my friend, Mama," Emma protested, her eyes shimmering with determination. "I want to see what she's talking about." "Please." "No. You don't understand." I felt my heart racing, each beat echoing in my ears. "We don't know what's out there." "What are you seeing, Emma?" My question seemed to only fuel her resolve as she took a bold step outside, brushing past her father with a swift grace that took me by surprise. She looked back at me, a fire kindling in her gaze. "It's okay. I'll be back. I promise." The vulnerability in that promise pierced through me, tugging against the instinctual need to safeguard her. I felt like a dam ready to burst, emotions crashing over the edge, turbulent and wild. "Wait." I shouted one last time, but it felt futile. Emma had already crossed the threshold, leaving me with nothing but the sheer force of worry churning inside me. "Maria," my husband said, tone escalating into a low whisper of panic. "What's happening?" Before I could respond, Claire let out a laugh, melodic yet unsettling, as she beckoned for Emma to follow her down the street. My daughter turned, taking Claire's hand, and in that moment, they seemed to blend into a suffusion of light and shadows, leaving me rooted at the doorway, grasping the frame as if to hold the ground beneath me. Mary stepped forward, her expression softening as she placed a hand on my shoulder. Sometimes, children need to explore their fears to begin understanding them. It can lead to healing. I supposed Mary was right. There was wisdom in the willingness to confront the unknown, but an inscrutable horror clawed at my chest, testing my resolve. "You don't know what I see when Emma is in the dark. I don't want her wandering blindly." "It's not blind if she's with someone who's been there or seen it," Mary replied gently, her gaze shifting to the space where Emma and Claire were now standing, silhouetted against the setting sun. "You can't shield her from everything that." I looked back at my husband, whose eyes were now fixed on the horizon, where the distant shadows twisted into shapes that felt all too familiar. I wanted to scream, to pull Emma back and wrap her in my arms, but something was chaining me in place, an unseen force rooted in fear. Suddenly, a shiver ran through the air, pulling my attention back toward the street. A flicker of movement drew my eye, and I saw a figure emerging from the darkness at the end of the road. A tall silhouette, blurred but distinct, watching the girl, an ominous harbinger of resistance against the light that Claire and Emma seemed to breathe. "Who is that?" I whispered, the breath catching painfully in my throat. My heart thundered as adrenaline coursed through me. Mary squinted, her expression shifting to one of concern. "I don't know." "We should." Before she could finish, the figure stepped closer into view, and a chill ran down my spine as recognition set in. It was someone I never expected to see again. Jamie, the neighbor from down the street who had long disappeared from our lives, pulling with him shadows of a past I had tried to forget. He had always been a blend of charm and danger, but now his presence felt like a storm front poised to break. "Emma," he called out, voice echoing with an uncanny familiarity that seemed to idle unease in my stomach. "Come here, sweetheart. I've got something to show you." Emma's head whipped around, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. I felt all at once the walls closing in, the shadows lengthening, wrapping around my heart in a squeeze that made breath shallow. "Turn back, Emma." My plea slipped through my lips unbidden, desperation drowning out reason. But just as she hesitated, Claire stepped forward, nudging her to move closer to Jamie. My instincts screamed at me, a primal urge to protect my daughter surfacing despite the encroaching dread. The shadows of my past collided with the uncertain hopes of the future as I stood at the cusp of a decision that could rip everything apart. "Don't go," I cried, more fervently this time, propelled by a love that drummed hysterically in my chest. And in that moment, as Emma's small frame lingered between two worlds, the shadow of the past and the glow of infinite possibility, the air grew taut with unseen forces, whispering secrets only they could decode, pulling us all forward into the heart of the mystery unfolding at our doorstep. I could only watch, helpless and afraid, as fate carved its path into the shadows, leaping toward a truth I could barely comprehend. The world felt suspended in time, each second stretching unbearably as I stood frozen on the threshold, my heart a cacophony of fear and helplessness. Emma, perched between innocence and curiosity, seemed to take on the weight of my past, one filled with regrets and unspoken words, veiled by the shadows of Jamie's return. "Emma. Please." My voice strained against the pressure closing in around me. But her gaze was locked onto Jamie, curiosity eclipsing her understanding of danger. "Mama, I want to see," Emma said softly, the resolve in her eyes a painful reminder of the little girl I both cherished and feared. Claire's presence loomed larger, a bright contrast in the gathering dusk. "Sweetheart," I pleaded, desperation clawing at my throat. "Come back inside. This isn't safe." Jamie took another step forward, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he relished the tension coiling in the air. "It's okay, Emma. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to show you something special." There was a sincerity in his voice that tilted dangerously on the edge of manipulation, the kind that had once drawn me in years ago. Yet, I knew too well the palatable sweetness that masked his chaos. "He's lying, Emma. You don't know him." My husband's hand found mine, firm yet trembling. "We need to get her back, Maria. Now." But doubt wrapped around my heart like chains, a tether to memories I had buried deep. Jamie was a figure I had never wanted to encounter again, a specter that haunted all our lives. "Just let her look," Claire insisted, her voice clear in the dusk. "You don't know what you're keeping her from." The tension escalated, an almost tangible energy in the air as Jamie smirked, his eyes brimming with secrets meant only for Emma's innocent ears. My lungs felt constricted, each breath a battle against the worry that threatened to consume me. "Don't you see?" Jamie called out, his charm seeping into the space between us. "I've been where she is. I understand what it's like to feel lost in the dark. I can help her." "Help her?" I scoffed, anger bubbling to the surface as I gestured wildly. "You mean drag her into the same abyss you crawled out of?" His smile faltered for just a moment as he absorbed my words, but then it returned, more insidious. "Everyone faces darkness, Maria. It's how we learn to rise. I can teach Emma to embrace it." "Embrace it?" I echoed, bewildered by the audacity. "You think that's what she needs?" At that moment, something flickered in Emma's expression, confusion mixed with a sliver of excitement. She glanced at Claire, who nodded encouragingly, and for the briefest of seconds, I saw the fragile threads of my daughter's trust weave into a tableau that felt uncanny. I stepped forward, the weight of my desperation pressing me onward. "Emma, listen to me. You don't have to go with him. You have a choice, sweetheart. You can choose me." But Claire hushed, bringing a finger to her lips. "It's an adventure, Maria," she countered, voice softening as she tried to coax the situation back into something manageable. Before I could respond, something inside me began to unravel. This was no longer about Jamie or Emma, it was an eruption of memories, the allure of darkness I had once succumbed to and the shadows still lurking in the corners of my mind. Clenching my fists, I felt a flicker of hope ignite against my fear. Maybe there was still strength in connection, in the lingering support of a community that healed rather than harmed. I looked past Jamie and Claire to see Mary still at the periphery, her gaze focused and unwavering. "I know someone who can help you, Emma," I began, the words tumbling out as clarity pierced through my panic. "Someone who understands the beauty of light." My daughter's brow knitted together, questioning. "But what about Jamie?" Before I could answer her, the winds picked up, stirring the air into wild currents, filling the silence with a rush of sound that felt like an awakening. Again, I saw movement behind Jamie, a subtle shift in the darkness beyond. My instincts screamed at me to pay attention, and as I squinted into the shadows, the outline of another figure appeared, another woman stepping hesitantly from the gloom. I couldn't make out her features, but there was something deeply familiar in her stance, the way she stood rooted, as if assessing the fractured dynamics playing out before her. "Stay back!" I yelled to whoever it was, instinctually protective over Emma. "Don't come any closer." Both Claire and Jamie turned abruptly, their expressions shifting from intrigue to irritation. "This is none of your business," Jamie barked, defiance dancing in his eyes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this new figure was linked somehow to the tapestry woven around us, a story I hadn't thought to confront. A disquieting revelation budded inside me, urging me to recognize the stakes. "Emma!" I shouted as my heart leapt into my throat. "Hold on. I think someone is here to help." And so, the moment hung suspended not just in our past, but poised precariously over an uncertain future. The woman, shadows clinging to her like a cloak, stepped out of the dark, and every bone in my body tensed as I prepared for the truth about to unravel, a truth that could cut deeper than any wound, binding us all in a shared history neither of us was quite ready to face. The air trembled with the unsaid words and unshared truths, the woman stepping out from the dark carrying a weight that felt impossibly familiar. I squinted, desperate to place her, my heart thrumming an anxious rhythm. "Mom?" The voice was small yet echoed through the branches of my memory, cracking open a door I had long kept shut. The figure emerged into the dying light, revealing the features of a woman I hadn't seen in years, Juliet, my childhood friend who had become a whispered memory fraught with guilt and longing. How could I have forgotten? The sight of her brought back echoes of laughter and dreams of grandeur, cherished moments overshadowed by choices made that led us down different paths, coalescing into a sharp familiarity both comforting and terrifying. "Maria," she said, voice trembling as she took a cautious step forward. "I've come to help." A chill swept through me, her tone was weighted, laden with the stories and regrets we'd crafted separately in the years since our youth split us apart. Questions surged within me, a frantic tidal wave of emotions battling for dominance. "Help?" I echoed, my focus flickering between Jamie's predatory grin and the raw vulnerability painted across Juliet's face. "You think you can just waltz back in, Anne, please?" Juliet's voice cracked, a fracture emerging in her composure. "It's not what you think. I've seen him, Maria. I've seen Jamie, what he did. I've been waiting for the right moment to intervene. I didn't know how to reach out without putting you and Emma at risk." "Risk? You think this is just about risk?" I snapped, my own despair leaking through the cracks that were beginning to show in the walls I had built around my heart. The chaos unfurling felt like a storm raging inside of me. "You left. You chose to turn your back, and now you've come to save us, Maria." "I never wanted to leave," she whispered, her expression flickering with remorse that coiled around my heart. "I was scared. There is so much I need to explain. Right now, it doesn't matter." I shot back, the urge to cry bubbling beneath my words, desperate for the ground to shift beneath us so we could escape this moment. "Emma's in danger, and I won't let him hurt her," Jamie shrugged, remaining an immovable force. "This is all ridiculous melodrama, Maria," he taunted, as if our crumbling lives were nothing but entertainment. "Children are resilient. What they really need is adventure, not the sanitized cage you call home." The laughter in his voice was a hissing snake coiling around my resolve, and I looked down at Emma, her innocent eyes wide with confusion and yearning. "Mama," she ventured, her voice a fragile thread reaching for something solid in the chaos. "Can I talk to her?" She gestured toward Juliet, and my heart crumpled. "Emma, no," I said, fear twisting my stomach. But the look in my daughter's gaze like a flower yearning for sunlight made me falter. "I don't want you to get hurt." "It's okay, Mama," Emma insisted, and there was a shattering line in my resolve as I hesitated. The bond one shared with her was twisting in on itself, caught in an unrelenting pull of trust and instinctive protection. Juliet knelt slowly, her face softening in that maternal way I had forgotten, the way I could almost see her as the sister I had yearned for in childhood. "Emma," she urged, voice dripping with sincerity, "I'm not here to hurt you. I promise. I know about the challenges you face, and I want to help you find them. We can figure it out together." Tears pricked at my eyes, and I felt the ground shift once more. In that moment, a new kind of fear blossomed within me. If Juliet had changed? What if she was right? What if there was a strength I hadn't seen within Emma that was aching to be unveiled? Who are you to talk about challenges? Jamie interjected, irritation coloring his words. Glorified babysitter? Maria, don't lose focus. You know what my arrival means. You're creating shadows around yourself and your child. I can bring her to the light, the thrill she deserves. Not this tangled my heart raced, a tempest raged within me as I wrestled with my memories, my decisions, and the uncertainties unfurling before me. I wanted to believe Jamie was lying, yet the remnants of our past haunted me. He was a master of deceit cloaked in charisma. The darkness seeped in, but I strongly felt the flicker of connection to Juliet, a flick of hope that danced along the edges, igniting old embers within me. But then Emma's voice broke through the tension, soft and tremulous, like a petal caught in a storm. Mama, can I go with her? No. I shouted, the word ripping through me like glass. Everything froze, the air thickening with tension as the three of us stared at each other. Why? Emma's small voice cracked, wide eyes locking onto mine, tears forming. I want to know more. I can't keep living in this bubble. The finality of her words landed heavy upon me, and out of that rawness, the darkness within me began to stir uncontrollably. I wanted to scream, to wrap Emma in safety, but a singular truth surfaced. Perhaps it was time for us both to face the long-buried fears. But as I opened my mouth to respond, Jamie stepped forward again, his presence consuming, swirling like a tempest, ready to rip away the last remnants of my resolve. I can give her everything, Maria, he said, each word dripping with persuasive venom. Don't you want to see her truly shine? The question rippled through me, a haunting echo as time seemed to hang suspended. I turned to find Juliet's eyes full of empathy yet glazed with unspoken fears, and the shadows returned, cloaking everything in a veil of uncertainty. Just then, a scream shattered the air, a desperate, wrenching sound that drew our gazes toward the street. A car skidded to a halt, tires screeching, and in that horrifying moment, there was no doubt something was about to spiral out of control, my heart racing toward the unknown, the evening swallowing us whole as we faced a new darkness rising before us. The scream echoed like a siren, slicing through the cottony haze of my impulse to protect Emma. The car, black and sleek, loomed ominously, a distorted shadow on the dusk-lit street. My heart hammered against my chest as I snapped my gaze back to my daughter, her cherubic face reflecting confusion yet tinged with an odd sense of adventure. Mama, what's happening? Emma whimpered. That I don't know, sweetheart, I replied, panic trembling throughout my body. Something felt off, as if the world was turning on its axis, unfurling a sinister new chapter I'd never anticipated. Jamie's laughter danced through the air, chilling and cold. Oh, this should be entertaining, he sneered, his eagerness coating everything with a sinister edge. Look, Maria. Your precious bubble is about to be seriously punctured. That I had no time to process his taunts. My instincts kicked in, propelling me toward the street. The figure emerging from the vehicle was a whirlwind of panic, waving frantically until the shadow of a tall man stepped out beside the driver. My breath hitched as I recognized the unmistakable profile of Andrew, my estranged brother, Juliet. He shouted, his voice a ragged plea that crumbled all around us. Get out of the way. You don't know what's coming. Chaos erupted. I felt Jamie's grip tighten around my arm as he growled, now this is a mess, and mess it was. My brother was a stranger forged by years of silence and misunderstandings, and yet the sight of him broke through the chaos of my heart. What was he doing here, and why was he shouting at Juliet? The past danced before my eyes, so many unspoken words, so many hurtful silences, and suddenly, feelings of dread and anger bubbled to the surface. Andrew? I managed to croak, uncertainty coating my voice. What are? Listen to me, Maria. We're running out of time. His eyes darted around, wild with urgency. I can't let you do this again. Not with them. He's not who you think he is. Who? Jamie? I glanced at the man tethering my future to a precarious line. You're deluding yourself. No. Andrew shouted again, desperation clawing his tone. It's bigger than that. It's about what he's planning. He knows she can make her disappear. The word disappear hung in the air like a grim reminder of everything I had feared since Jamie crashed into our lives. My heart sank, a heavy stone lodging itself deep within my chest. Stop. Both of you. Juliet pleaded, her expression straining under the weight of rising tension. Arguing won't help anything. We need to protect Emma, right? Jamie interjected, stepping forward, shielding me from the weight of this conversation. Protecting her means letting her experience life, not hiding. Where's the thrill in that? Emma, caught in the eye of the storm, blurted, I want to know what's going on. Why is everyone shouting? Each of Andrew's words sliced through the air, reverberating against the frantic rhythm of my thoughts. Jamie's influence felt like smoke curling around us, sabotaging any hope of clarity. You don't understand. He's always 2 steps ahead, he's got a plan. You need to trust me. My head spun, torn between the safety net woven by the years with Emma, and the connection I had once so fiercely shared with Juliet and the nostalgia laced with my brother's face. Heartbreak mingled with guilt, their genuine concern battling against the haunting memories that had shaped my path. Shut up. I screamed, my voice cracked and hoarse, anguish driving my words. You're both scaring her. Juliet reached for Emma, fingers brushing her arm as if grounding her within all this chaos. Emma, sweetheart, we need to go. Now that no. Don't take me away. Emma protested, panic flaring in her eyes. You're all being mean. Why can't I just know? Because it's dangerous. I shouted back, desperation blurring my words as fear pressed against my ribcage. It felt as if the ground beneath us was trembling, a clarity revealing itself a moment too late. Out of nowhere, Jamie tightened his grip and yanked my arm, pulling me back towards the looming threat of the street. Come on, Maria. Stop living in the past. Let's focus on the light. Before I could react, a cacophony stirred amid the growing storm. A flash, then a crash. I whirled just in time to witness Andrew being flung backward, the heavy impact rendering the atmosphere dead still, bodies frozen in shock. Get away from them. He yelled, his voice fierce yet strained, but the fire within him flickered beneath the shock of the moment. I was rooted to the spot, fear clawing at my throat as Jamie's expression switched from bravado to something darker, something foreboding. Enough games, he spat, directing a glower at Andrew. You work with me or the consequences will reach your family as well. Time warped. In that instant, my world split into fragments, 1,000 threads weaving together, tearing apart, truths intertwining with betrayal. Emma, still in the midst of it all, clasped her hands in front of her, fear etched on her face, and suddenly it struck me, the realization that everything I thought I knew was morphing into something sinister. The protective walls I had built were crumbling, and I had but moments left to choose where my loyalty lay. Before I could form a reply, the car door swung open wide, revealing the chilling silhouette of a woman dressed in dark clothing, her face shrouded beyond a veil of darkness. It was a figure reminiscent of nightmares, and as she stepped forward, a cold shiver trickled down my spine. I'm not ready to lose my family again, Andrew whispered, despair swallowing him, and as the disquiet in the air thickened, I realized this was a reckoning I could no longer escape. A silent understanding coursed through me, and as the woman's gaze locked onto mine, I felt the chilling truth settle in. Unexpected turn was about to shift the very foundation of our lives. The air fell heavy with anticipation, a suffocating tension clinging to our senses as the woman stepped further into the light. A whirlwind of emotions cascaded through me: fear, nostalgia, regret, each competing for dominance as I gazed into the face of a stranger I had nearly forgotten, yet somehow recognized as a part of the tapestry woven throughout the fractured chapters of my life. Maria, she said, her voice soft yet haunting, it's time to make a choice. My heart sank as I absorbed the weight of her words, sensing the gravity of the moment spiraling beyond our control. The shadows encapsulating our small enclave began to twist as if sensing the imminent revelation at hand. "Who are you?" I managed, uncertainty slipping into my tone as my gaze flickered between her and Andrew. My brother's expression drained of color, a silent recognition dawning across the expanse of his features. "I've come to address the threads that bind us, Maria," she replied, her presence ethereal yet grounded in a knowing that sent shivers racing down my spine. "When we lost you all those years ago, it fractured our bond. The darkness has thrived since then, but this is a beginning. If you choose to face it, you will find the strength to navigate the path before you. Truth has power." "Truth?" I echoed, recalling the shadows that had loomed over my life and Emma's, shadows that now whispered promises wrapped in treacherous allure. For a split second, the room held its breath, mired in the fragile embrace of the unknown. "Let Emma decide," Jamie interjected, grinning like a wolf through the encroaching fog, his gaze trained on the unfolding drama. "She wants adventure, doesn't she? This isn't about you, Maria. It's time for her to find her own light. You'll stop at nothing, will you?" Andrew spat, glaring at him, the weight of our shared past hanging in the air like a noose. And yet, as the chaos swirled, all I felt was the tenacity of a mother's heart longing to protect her child from the dark, from Jamie, and from the stories I were still afraid to confront. "Emma," I said, turning to my daughter, my voice trembling with urgency. "What do you want? What do you feel in your heart?" She gazed at me, confusion painting her delicate features, her mind whirling with turbulence. "Too want to know why I feel this way," she blurted out, innocence colliding with uncharted depths. "Mama, I want to know if it's okay to be scared." In that moment, everything crystallized into clarity. I kneeled to her level, my eyes searching hers, willing her to understand the importance of her voice. "Sweetheart, it's always okay to be scared. It means you're alive, it means you're feeling. But it's also up to you to decide how to face what's out there, what's ahead of us," I whispered. "This darkness, it can't define you unless you let it." The woman's expression softened, her eyes pooling with tears that felt as real as the weight of my own fears. "You've carried the burden alone for too long, Maria. It's time to free yourself and embrace who you are meant to be to heal," she urged, an undercurrent of hope threading through her tone. While the seething tension enveloped us, Emma's eyes widened, clarity spilling into her thoughts, creating ripples that spread through the air like brushstrokes on a canvas. "Then I want to learn," she said seriously, determination solidifying in her tone. "If it can help me get rid of the shadows, I want to." "No!" I cried, dread twisting my insides. "Emma, wait. You don't understand." But she remained steadfast, holding her ground like a beacon amid the tumult. "I want to know where I belong. Can't you see? I'm tired of hiding." For a heartbeat, Jamie's wicked smile faltered, perhaps sensing that our bond was stronger than he had anticipated. Yet I felt the reality swell around us, the shadows reaching closer as the moment of decision arrived. I couldn't allow his grip on Emma's curiosity to take hold, but I had to ask myself, would embracing this journey of vulnerability be the key to breaking the chains of isolation between us? "Maria," Andrew's voice cut through, no longer laced with urgency, but clarity. "Trust in the light. If she's ready to step into this truth, we will be here to guide her. But do not let fear rule." The weight of his words resonated with a strength I was afraid to face. It sank into me, forging cracks through the walls I had built, allowing light to seep through with each word. This darkness we faced would not merely take my daughter from me, it threatened to obliterate everything we once were as a family if we allowed it. "Then let's fight together," I said finally, my voice shaking yet fierce. "We've faced our demons for too long. If we must venture into the darkness, we will do it as a family." The stirring air shifted, and in that moment, I decided. This would not be something I relinquished to Jamie. I would fight for the light and for the unbreakable bond we shared. The shadows may follow me from behind, but they would not define the steps we took moving forward. Andrew stepped forward resolutely. "Emma, we do not need to outrun our past, but we must confront it head-on if we wish to allow the light to guide us. With courage igniting in my heart, I turned once more to the woman who had emerged from the depths. "Tell me what I need to do," I urged, desperate for guidance while holding Emma's small hand firmly in mine, the connection grounding me. "Embrace your truth, Maria," she replied, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "In vulnerability lies strength. You must confront the shadows, but more importantly, you must learn to trust in the light you hold inside, for it is greater than you know." Emma squeezed my hand, understanding coursing through her innocent gaze. "Mama, I want to remember all the good things we've shared, all the laughter and colors. I don't want to hide anymore." Her unwavering determination captured a spark of courage. It was infectious, and while the specter of Jamie loomed, the world around us shifted. I inhaled deeply, drawing on the resolve swirling within me to shatter through the confines that had cloistered us for too long. I felt the warmth of both Andrew and the woman beside me as they, too, readied for this fight, prepared to celebrate connection as the unpredictable journey of life thrummed on. We would face the truth together, and with that single step forward, I felt the light flicker brighter within me, igniting all the unspoken bonds of love that had tied our lives together, the laughter we had created and the adventures yet to unfold. As the shadows faded behind us, I grasped my daughter's hand tighter, whispering, "From here on out, my love, we're choosing courage. One step at a time." And so, in the symphony of hope, loss, and rebirth, I knew our journey was just beginning. As time marched onward, I recognized the power of our connect-iona bond steeped in history, love, and an immovable strength that would light our way, carving our path through every shadow that dared to loom. And as we stepped forward hand in hand, my last thought echoed into the depths of my soul: this was our to meet, oh heal, to uncover, and above all, to embrace the boundless possibilities that awaited us, as the story was ours to pen anew. We had every color in the world to paint with, and the canvas of our lives spanned vast and uncharted, waiting for us to fill it with the brilliance of being truly, beautifully alive.